Okay, great. Okay, so this is our third town hall meeting. So I think similar to what we did last time, that structure worked where we have updates and sort of plans for this week. Updates are essentially what happened the previous week and any feedback from what happened last week and anything we could improve on or anything that worked well. And then plans are sort of outlining what we want to do for this week. So I'll get started with the first agenda item on updates. So it's the Algovera Handbook. So anybody who doesn't know, we've started to work on a handbook. And the purpose of the handbook is to essentially help people navigate the whole ecosystem that we're trying to build. So it might be, doing introductions in Discord to assigning yourself a role and how to get involved in projects, how to get involved in contributing, and so on. So it's just a place for people to navigate the different operations of Algovera. So we started to think about what are the table of content for the first version of the draft. And we're building on top of Docusaurus. It's a technology that's used to build handbook type models, handbook type websites. And so we've started that last week. We pulled that down. We started a shared document to start working out what goes in the table of content. Once we're happy with the table of content, we'll move towards putting information together for that table of content. So that's something that happened last week. Anybody have any content on that or more comments? Or if not, I can move on to the next item. No? Yeah. Richard, did you have something?
I haven't taken a look at the shared doc yet, but cool. Yeah, I will at some point soon.
Yeah. I think we just started. I just put down a couple of items, so feel free to add to the items or comment anything that you think doesn't need to be on the table of contents. So yeah, we can start working to put more meat on that document this week and over the coming weeks. It's privately held for now, as in it's not visible publicly, just because we're starting to get everything, the ball rolling. And I think the eventual outcome will be we'll have some sort of GitHub repo where people can request a pull or have a pull request that can edit parts of the handbook. So if there's sort of grammatical errors or if people want to add anything onto the handbook, there's a way to do that. But for the time being, it's kept private because there's not much on it right now. So there last week there was also a tokenomics pod with Jakub, which went really well. And I've done the notes, almost finished it. It's about 90%. So I have a little bit more to do on that front, but first meeting went well. We got good sort of overview of how we might want the tokenomics of Algovera to progress. And we'll progress that conversation now this week as well on Wednesdays. And we also set up the channel on Algovera for anybody to also look at what sort of things we're doing, but we've capped the pods to 4 people so that conversation can stay concentrated, right? So that's the tokenomics pod. There was also a create pod that we set up. Essentially, this pod is to figure out what happens when the hacking sessions finish. How can we empower the people that we've sort of trained up to do data science in this new way? What opportunities can we provide to enable them to either create their own project or work on projects that are sort of hosted by third parties? So that's the 2 pods that we set up for last week. And that's going to continue to run over this week and until the problem is solved that the pod is trying to address.
Yeah, we were basically saying that like after we finish these hacking sessions, once we publish our first algorithm and get everything working, that's kind of like our training series. And then at that point, that would be a really good point for people. We want to give people next steps, whether that's to propose their own project or maybe work on a project that comes from one of our like partners, like a kind of consultancy. And yeah, just like to have that all figured out, what the next steps are when we get to the end of the hacking sessions. And Hitesh, I don't know, do you want to give just a quick overview of what a pod is and like what we're
Yeah.
with them?
So I suppose the idea of pods kind of came about from Kernel, the accelerator program that we're doing. What we found in sort of the first series of conversations we've had, where there was close to 10 people in a discussion, we found that a lot of the conversation had a lot of different opinions and topics being discussed, but the conversation wasn't being focused on one particular problem. And we think in order for that to happen, there should be a limit to the number of people, and there should be a topic at hand which is discussed. So that's how the pods came about. So we essentially said, okay, let's limit the people that are on a particular pod to 4 people, and let's establish sort of recurring meetings to figure out those problems. And we also sort of set up a Notion page to view who are all in the pods and who are active. Anybody who's joining in a conversation and trying to solve the particular problem that the pod is trying to address is also considered a core contributor on Algovera. Excuse me. And the idea is to start encouraging people, members of the community, to set up pods that are interested in and that maybe we can join, to work on their own problems. And the role for us is to try and connect all these pods and connect all the insights from all these pods and aggregate them together and hopefully progress Algovera forward. That's the basic idea of pods, is to have these subsystems of conversations in solving problems, and us being sort of the connecting dots between them and aggregating that into progressing Algovera. So that's a pod, and anyone can message us and start a pod that they're really interested in, that they think would be valuable for Algovera, and we could start the conversation there and set up a pod if you're interested in something like that.
So I could imagine like, a biomedical pod or something like that. If you would start reaching out to get biomedical data or something like that. So just anything that people are interested in, their domain of expertise or whatever. Yeah.
Then number 3 is SourceCred. So last week we deployed an instance of SourceCred. We pointed it to the existing repo, which is the generative art repo. So SourceCred's purpose is to track contributions and track value created. So we've deployed that instance and pointed it to the generative art repo, and hopefully we can, as there's more activity in the GitHub, we can track the contributions. My eventual sort of outcome of SourceCred and how we might use SourceCred is as a sort of a general reputation system to know who all in the community has provided value. So the GitHub instance is just to test out the tool and to see how it works. But eventually we hope to sort of roll it out to the wider community that Algovera is building. So that would be Discord and possibly Discourse if once we've sort of incorporated Discourse into our workflow, and that could be where propositions to new projects and so on get discussed, and formal discussions get discussed, whereas Discord is more of like an informal discussion forum. Yeah, Keaton.
Oh yeah, so just one thing I was going to mention about SourceCred and its extensibility is, since it is open source, there's a lot of flexibility to add new tools. So what I would just say, for folks watching and people in the community in general, is start thinking about where this value creation is happening, and we can potentially look into adding some custom plugins to that. So yeah.
Well, I think I was going to also suggest that we should start looking into integrations with Discord soon as well, so that there's quite a lot of activity now happening in Discord. I think Keaton, you mentioned that it's also it works retroactively, so almost like, you know, even if you plug it in a few weeks time, it'll still measure the activity that happened now. So I don't know if that's the same with Discord, but I think if it's the case that we can start getting the Discord activity, you know, start recording the Discord activity as well, I think that could be quite useful. And it might not be a lot of work. So that's something that we could possibly look into this week as well. Anything else about SourceCred, Richard?
I think MNK had a question there. Did you? What can we call you, by the way?
Yeah. What's your alias?
I just go by Rish. Everybody, you know, in real life calls me Rish, so you can call me that.
Okay.
Can you type that in the chat? Just so sorry, my speakers are really low for some reason.
RISH, is it?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I go by Rish in real life, so you can call me Rish.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. And did you have a question about the SourceCred?
About the pods, I was thinking just but the creative, the generative art one is not a pod, right? Right.
No.
Now.
So generative art isn't considered a pod, because that's more of like it's part of the hacking session, where, you know, Richard is sort of guiding a project, and there are collaborators who work on that project and try and get some practical output from it. Pods are more conversation based, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's like a focused conversation.
Focused conversation, exactly. Yeah, focused conversation, and the main thing is like there's a specific topic at hand, and it could be any topic. But the purpose of the pod is to solve whatever a problem is proposed or discuss the topic at hand, so we have a clearer idea of that topic.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
What else? Okay, so I think that's a SourceCred and Tokenomics pod. And
just to add, since Jakob joined, we just discussed the Tokenomics pod a few minutes ago. So thanks for adding the diagrams of the kind of flow of tokens and things like that. So that's really good for steps, and looking forward to discussing it on Wednesday, I think, is it?
Yeah. I mean, those pods are just some based on what we talked about last time, so it's very, very basic right now. There might be some other models as well that we might discuss on Wednesday.
I shared the document there with Richard and Jakob as well. It's not finished, like I was saying, but it's still a little bit left to do.
And Jakob presented at the Algovera Town Hall on Friday, which I attended, and like it was very impressive with all. I think you had like 5 or 6 different models that you tried for funding and stuff like that. So hopefully that's like really good progress that we can start to, you know, take some learnings from with Algovera as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. Sort of touched on it briefly. It was the hacking session that happened last week. Maybe Richard, you can speak a little bit more about what happened in the last hacking session.
Yeah, so like we had our biggest turnout yet for a hacking session with 10 people, which was great. So I think it was a really good session, and people seem to be quite excited about the project and contributing and stuff. And so what I've done since is basically trying to, rather than me directing each session, people have shown interest in, you know, maybe even like co-hosting or like helping out with the notebooks and stuff like that. And so I've created a project on GitHub with a Kanban board for issues. And I'm basically just going to map out what my next steps would be if I was, you know, for the next hacking session and the hacking session after that. And if no one wants to contribute to it, then that's fine. I can just do the issues myself, but at least it gives people the options to say, oh, I'll work on this issue, for example, or maybe propose some like slight alternatives to issues and stuff. And so, yeah, the conversation has started over in GitHub, which is great. And Jakob and Rish have both, I think, commented on issues. You're our 2 commenters so far, and Rish committed. There was a small issue with the OceanPy library version. And so what worked on my notebook, for example, didn't work on Rish's. And so he submitted a pull request, and I just merged that today. So he's officially our first contributor to the generative art project. And so hopefully we can continue that and continue experimenting with coordinating on this project. I think that's going to be really, really interesting.
I think it would be really useful, and I was going to bring this up as well, if there was a little, I think you have it set up essentially now, which is the projects. I think people need a bit of guidance into how they can contribute. So I think we mentioned in the hacking sessions that we're going to have some cards up, and people can pull from the cards and work on those things. So it'd be great to have some tasks there that people can start contributing, and then maybe we can mention in the Discord that, look, there are cards up there that you can start working on if you're interested. Yeah, that's nice. You're on mute, by the way, Richard. You're on mute.
I can never find the mute button when I'm sharing screen. Yeah, I just wanted to show you what the board looks like at the moment, and it's still a work in progress. So I'm still adding issues. So hopefully I can get a good few up here, and then we can get some discussion going on which ones people want to work on and stuff like that. And yeah, again, it's just an experiment on getting people collaborating, really. So figuring out, if people have tips and stuff, how to improve it, that would be great as well.
Great. Yeah, that looks good. Hopefully now over the next few days, there'll be more activity on that.
Hey, Chris.
Hello, Chris. Just going through the updates. Do you want to move from the hacking session? So yeah, okay, cool. So there's a fifth item was the assigning contributor roles. So the one thing we want to start empowering people is to essentially take a more contributor role in the Algovera ecosystem and organization. So we've created a contributor role. So if you look in the Discord, you can easily see who are sort of contributors and who are sort of passive, people in the community that want to just have a look at what we're doing, but aren't contributing to hacking sessions or so on. So we still haven't figured out the exact sort of a criteria for being a contributor. We've sort of loosely defined as if you're joined a pod or if you've joined more than one hacking session. But I think we can get a bit more clarity into how we define contributors, and we can start assigning people in the Discord as contributors. We've just started with a couple of people that are working on pods or we work closely with, but over the next couple of days, we'll start assigning more contributors. It just so means that people who come into the Discord know who are actively working on things within the community, and I think that's an important thing. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Also, the hope is that we can give ownership to the people who are contributing. Whenever a token launches and that sort of thing, we want to assign these roles so that we can classify how much people have contributed and how much value they should get for that, basically.
It's essentially, yes. So trying to provide some value back because Algovera is going to be built by the community, and whoever is contributing should be rewarded appropriately when value is created, right? So that's what we're trying to do with SourceCred as well, is to try and have some sort of qualitative metric on who's contributing value, and that's why we want to try and capture all the value, so that in terms of quantifying it, so that whenever we do create value, we can give it back to whoever helped in creating that value. Number 6 is so just sort of more of an announcement that we've got the fund. We were successful in the funding for Ocean grant that we put in for the last time. I suppose there was a bit of uncertainty, but we pulled through in the last minute, which is great. So that's just one thing to sort of announce. And then last is if there's any other things that I missed from last week anybody wants to mention.
Just like one super small thing, just really quickly going back to SourceCred, folks, as you start contributing, particularly Rish and Yakub, as y'all have already contributed, take a look at the public SourceCred graph and see if, as you start to contribute more, see if you feel like it's accurately capturing your value. Again, the weights can always be adjusted and everything is retroactive. So there's not really a risk of like you doing really good work and then just being like, oops, too bad, you don't get credit for that. So just keep an eye on that. And as things develop, just see if that's capturing your value. Just a reminder, the website is not real time. It updates automatically at 00 UTC. So keep an eye there. If you ever have any questions about that, let me know. But yeah, as Sutesh said, would really like to make sure we're accurately representing contributions. So yeah, let's keep that conversation going.
Great, thanks.
So where is the link then, Keaton, for that?
I'll pop it in the chat here.
Oh, there it
is. So that's a link for the GitHub Richard put in, but it should also be on Notion under announcements. I put in a post there, I think a couple of days back, with the link. I can share it here as well. Oh, there it is. Richard shared it there.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, that it updates every 24 hours. So I can see locally when I run it. I see folks that have cred here, including you, Rish and Yakub. But yeah, those will be updated till later this evening on the public site.
Yeah, and we're hoping to have a proper domain once we've tested everything out. It's a bit of a silly domain name, but we'll transition into a proper one once we've sort of tested it out in this alpha case. Then let me just go back to the agenda. Yeah, so just going to plans. So plans is essentially what we're planning to do for this week. One thing we have on our plan for this week is that we've been selected to present at the showcase for the Kernel Accelerator program. So they select 20-ish projects, and we were selected as one of the projects that they want to showcase. So we'll have to do a bit of work on the slide decks for that. So that'll be something to work on.
So they're turning. We've kind of been hosting the hacking sessions, and we've been advertising them to people in Kernel as well. And so they're turning our hacking sessions into what they call a guild, and we can sort of add content around it and the thinking behind our mission and all that sort of stuff. And it means people who come after us can also like follow in our footsteps and like hopefully even get directed towards our community. And so they've only done this we're only the second project in this cohort that they've done this for out of 180 people. So like hopefully that brings more people into our community and gives us some credibility as well. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just briefly took a look at Kernel. It seems really very wonderful resource, I think. And yeah.
It is, and if you get a chance as well, if you're interested in sort of the Web3 space, I'd definitely recommend checking out their Learn modules. They do curate a lot of material that are very interesting to explore. So yeah, I'd highly recommend looking through their resources.
Or even applying for Block 5. I think they're taking applications at the moment. It's really, we can give you a referral link if you're interested as well. It's really well known. It's run by Gitcoin, and like it's quite funny. Like it's a prestigious accelerator, but like when I tell people in the real world, I'm in this accelerator, like no one knows about it, but it is actually like quite famous. And like even the first speaker that spoke there was Vitalik, who was on the call with us, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So hopefully that looks good to, whoever in future, whether it's investors or, community members and stuff like that.
They bring in really good speakers as well. Sam from Arweave was also on the call last week, I think. So Sam is the founder of Arweave. And they bring in really good speakers.
Okay. So and when are you going to present it?
Yes. So they have this like sort of showcase of projects that have been through that accelerator program. So it's like an 8-week program. And they select 20 projects that they think would be good to present. And we've been selected as one of them. So hopefully we get a bit more exposure and people start finding out about our community that way as well. So the dress rehearsals for the pitch is on Wednesday, and then the final pitch is on Friday. So we can actually, I think we can share the link for the pitch as well if anybody's interested in like taking a look at it. So that's on Friday. So we're just gonna need to put a pitch together for that. And
so your presentation is going to be about the decentralized aspects of AI, right? And hopefully Algovera being like one of the first AI organizations, right? As a decentralized AI kind of organization. Okay.
Yeah. So we're essentially presenting the vision we want to put forth with Algovera, and some people who are maybe interested in joining the community or joining the mission can sort of do so. So we're just pitching in on Friday. So hope for a good turnout, and maybe direct some people to our Discord and our community. Okay, great. So guess we'll move on. So we sort of mentioned pods earlier in the conversation. 2 pods that we want to start this week is roadmap and fundraising pod. So as the name suggests, we want to work out what the roadmap is for Algovera as a community, and also, how can we start the conversation on fundraising? So some of the ideas that we have, how can we execute on those ideas? And to execute on ideas, you'll need funds to start doing that. So we're just looking at different mechanisms of fundraising. What's the fairest way to do it? And it's just having a conversation about that. Anybody's interested, they can give us a message, and we can try and fit you into the pod. But yeah, it's focused on roadmap and fundraising.
And it ties in with like our create pod a bit, I guess, in that we don't just want data scientists to work for free forever. We want to have lots of different ways of like giving them an income, whether that's applying for a grant, like maybe a 1 page on like a project they wanted to work on, or maybe like a stipend, like, so I don't know, some amount per month. Like, so if someone was working part-time, maybe we could give $1,000 or something like that. And like maybe some other ways of paying people as well, like bounty based or something like that. And so if we want to start paying data scientists, and our mission is to get data scientists away from working in tech companies and more working for themselves in a decentralized freelance manner, then fundraising is going to be a big part of that. And so the big question is whether we go for the easier VC money, or we try to grow organically and have something like a fair launch or something like that. And so these are the sorts of things that we're discussing there.
Thanks, Richard. Number 3 is community directory. So this is something I'm really excited about. This essentially it's like a database of people within the community and their backgrounds and their interest. It allows for people to meet one another. So if, say, Chris is interested in somebody that's within the community that does something similar, or that he's interested in as well, how can he reach out to him and her, and sort of set up a conversation. So we want to try and facilitate cross collaboration and in sort of meeting new people. So we think a community directory would be a really great way of doing that. It's probably going to be just like a Notion page for now that has the details of maybe a bio, maybe the introduction that was put into the Discord, and the roles that you assigned yourself. Some maybe also grant you access so that you can edit your own profile essentially. And then as time goes, we can start adding in new properties into your profile, such as what projects you worked on, how many SourceCred status do you have. So it just still means people coming into the community again will be able to see, what projects you've been involved, what are your interests, What's your reputation like within the community, and so on. So we're just starting to build that process and trying to identify an infrastructure to build it around. And a community directory seems like a good model to do that. And we're just getting started on that this week. Keaton will be working with me on that as well. Is a super human in sort of operations, Zapier and Airtable and so on. So we'll be benefiting from his skills there. Anything else you want to mention there, Keaton or Richard or anybody else?
Yeah, nope, just that should be able to have like a functioning community directory up, hoping to have like a decent amount of functionality where obviously you can add yourself and then edit as roles develop as well. Looking additionally into possibility of like pulling roles directly from Discord into the directory. So yeah, the idea is to make it a really cool place to sort of interact with the community and meet folks. But as usual, it'll be an iterative process and would love feedback too. So as folks start to engage with the directory, let us know what's working, what's not, and we'd be happy to continue to build it out.
I just wanted to add as well that I was chatting to someone who we might like partner with on certain projects. They're another company in OceanDAO called Empowered, and they're working with like fruit and veg suppliers or something like this, and it's all about supply chain. And he mentioned, he wants to say that we have people who can build algorithms as well, which are Algovera. And he said at some stage he might request, a list of people in our community who could work on these algorithms. And so the directory plays in there as well. I guess like it would be more so a directory of the data scientists in our community, which might be important to the people that we partner with. So I don't know, maybe that's different to the internal directory. And then we have like a data science directory of contributors who we can say are available to, work on projects and get paid for us or something like that.
Yeah, and this is like sort of an opt-in sort of mechanism where, if you don't want to reveal anything about yourself, you can opt out or sort of not have your profile up on the directory. Again, we'll have to work out how all of this operationally, how it's done, but that's the idea. Anybody coming to the community can look through and see like, okay, what are the different skills and experiences that this community brings. And already we have really impressive people in the community, so showing that to whoever is coming in is a really important thing to say, look, this is the type of community that we're building. So again, yeah, it plays into a number of different purposes. So it's good to start get that up and running. So number 4 is the hacking sessions that's going to happen this week. Can you maybe Richard can tell us a little bit about what the plan is for the hacking session this week?
Yeah, I'm just starting to put up the issues that I need to work on for the hacking sessions, but they're open to everyone else to work on as well. And yeah, I think the idea is that first of all, we need to choose a model, because we were talking about StyleGAN 2 being overkill. And so maybe we can choose a simpler one now that we're working with low resolution image data sets. And seeing as it's a proof of concept as well, that kind of makes sense. So I'm thinking the idea, we want to publish an algorithm on the marketplace that then we can then run using this private AI technology, which is provided by the Ocean infrastructure. And it's going to be easier to get that up and running for relatively simple code, like processing a data set instead of needing GPUs to train an algorithm, for example. And so I'm thinking we might publish a data set processing algorithm as a first step, and then get that running on the private AI infrastructure. And we can get that, we can use that on the raw data, and then that will create this process data set. And then that process data set will be passed into some sort of generative model later. So that's kind of the direction that I'm thinking, and hopefully create a notebook or two that we can run through in the hacking sessions.
Great. And are people helping you out on this? I know you mentioned somebody co-hosting earlier. Is this session going to be co-hosted, or is it still undecided?
Yeah, Tarun, who's Mr. Rational on Discord, he reached out to say he was interested in working on the notebooks and possibly co-hosting. And so I'm I was talking to him last week, and yeah, again, if he wants to kind of join and help out with that, that's great. And if other people want to join and work on the notebooks as well, hopefully we can do that kind of async through GitHub or something like that, and also like in the Discord chat. And so if you're interested in like helping out with the notebooks, take a look at the board on GitHub, and then like reach out and mention it, and we can try and split the tasks or whatever.
Right, great. Can you also sort of, this is the next point as well, next point on the agenda, mention the DeFi hacking session that we're thinking about this week as well? Is that going to be this week, or is it going to be in the coming weeks?
I was just thinking I need to reach out to Greg. I think like the plan was to have it this week. And just like our first 2 hacking sessions for the generative art, it probably won't be any coding. We're just going to be trying to figure out a good first problem to solve. But the reason that we're starting these is because there's been some interest among people to work on like financial data or like blockchain and DeFi data. And there's a few other groups that do this. Like there's one other in the Ocean community. I just went to like a Gitcoin hackathon session with people who are working on blockchain data. And so we just thought since there's interest, we thought it would be good to just start exploring. And probably for the first 2 sessions, we'll just try and figure out a problem. And then at some stage we can start hacking again, just like we're doing with the generative art. And I guess in future, the idea would be like we could hack on lots of different, so maybe each active project could have 1 hacking session a week. Like, so maybe we could have one for text in future, or maybe, you know, climate. I know that like, I think Chris, you're interested in climate, for example, and there's a few other people in the community who are interested in climate. And so, yeah, we're just trying to, I guess, scale up our hacking sessions. Of course, if we're going to have loads of hacking sessions, the more people helping out with the notebooks and stuff each week would be really helpful. And so maybe we can start like a Kanban board for the financial hacking sessions at some point in future for people who are interested.
Great. Yeah, if there's nobody else that wants to comment on that, I'll move on to the last and final item. So the last item is sort of the legal structure. We just had a conversation this morning about the legal structure of Algovera. So we want to try and work out what's the best way to structure this. So we've been looking into maybe incorporating in Singapore, but that seems to be what most people have been suggesting. But there are also other options, but we're taking this week to sort of research a little bit more about legal structures and what are the different jurisdictions, and you know, what are favorable for what we're doing. So we're sort of starting to have that conversation, research a little bit more into the legal structure, and get a bit of idea which jurisdiction is the best to set up a company in. So that's the final item. Is there anything else you want to mention?
I was just going to add there, the reason that we're doing that is because we're starting to sign like partnerships with a couple of different companies, like MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, I think, and NDAs and stuff like that. And at the moment, I guess we have unlimited liability. And so if you're starting to sign these legal contracts, it's probably better to have limited liability. And so that's kind of what set the wheels in motion on this.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't know how much time we have here, and you know, this could be done in a separate discussion also. I was just interested in your decentralized AI, you know, the discussion that was going on there, and some of it also kind of is important for, say, the generative art project, right? Like, how do you figure out what your storage requirements are, what your you know, compute requirements are, and then how do you address them? Those kinds of things. So decentralized, at least the little bit that I saw of the video that you guys shared with, who was that? I forgot his name, but it was really great. And so it seemed to me like there's, the idea is that you really don't need, you know, like dedicated compute resources or dedicated storage. Is that right?
The idea would be that all of this would be decentralized. And so Like even for hosting the CryptoPunks dataset at the moment, we're using Amazon Web Services, but there's crypto projects like Filecoin, for example, which host in a decentralized fashion. So like a dataset might get split up, encrypted, and stored on loads of different people's hard drives. And they get rewarded for that through the native currency of Filecoin. And so our plan is to move from like AWS to some sort of decentralized file storage. And also our POC will probably use like centralized compute, but there's also decentralized compute providers. So hopefully we can move to a decentralized service there. And so bit by bit, we want to build up all of the tools that data scientists and machine learning engineers need to work on projects, but not using a centralized tech company who provides the compute, the storage, the coordination, and all that sort of stuff. So we basically want to try and decentralize all the different layers in the stack of a big tech company. And that's like our long-term mission, I suppose. It's probably going to take a while.
Right.
But
so if we run like say DC GAN, right, like Jakub was suggesting, where would it actually run? I mean, in your own machine, or
it would run for the POC. It's going to run on a Amazon cloud instance. But even in terms of storage, there's some issues that we need to figure out. So for example, we're assuming that the CryptoPunks dataset is private, right? And so if someone wants to process that dataset, they send the code to the dataset, and then that's going to need to save the processed version somehow. So we might need to set up like a storage server that has extra space for people who want to process the dataset into some format and then publish that. So even just on the processing of data side, there's some issues that we need to figure out. And then also like on the compute side as well, like obviously compute costs money. So we have to figure out where that comes from. And we have one of our partners has some AWS credits at the moment. So that's what we're going to be using in the short term, but it's not a sustainable solution. So we need to figure out, where does that come from, I guess. And so that's the idea of the POC, is to try and figure out some of the issues that we're going to encounter with having this decentralized AI infrastructure. And we're still going to have lots of centralized components at the start, which is where we're going to do the storage and the compute and stuff. But hopefully we'll start to be able to map out better a roadmap for how to decentralize the various components and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Glad you enjoyed the decentralized AI.
Yeah, it's like super great ideas. It's just coming out of, I mean, for me, they're just kind of just landing in front of me. I haven't been tuned into Web3 or anything, so just amazing stuff going on.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we were like, I guess the question of our whole organization is: do we still need the tech company anymore, or do we have the coordination tools and decentralization tools to just work for ourselves on the projects that we want, and not work to create value for someone else? So that's kind of the big question we're asking, and that's our long-term mission.
Yeah, great. Excited, waiting to see how everything goes. So working on the proof of concept for the GANs is great. Right? That makes everything, you can comprehend that stuff. But
great, and start thinking about what sort of project you want to work on after the hacking sessions as well. Like I think you said you work in, is it biomedical? I think is your domain. So like if you want to propose a project in that using like some of the tools that we create, like that would be fantastic. And hopefully we can even provide like small bounties for people to work, small grants for people to work on their own projects.
Yeah, like I thought GAN, the generative thing would be very useful to generate like synthetic records. So if some guy has a private database somewhere, you could make synthetic records off of it, right? That's the whole point of the GAN, I guess, right? With synthetic faces and so on. But you could also imagine that to be a patient record, for example. And so I was thinking that, it's a good project. At the same time, with the NFTs and the artwork, people are really attracted to that, I guess. So,
and the synthetic data generation stuff is really interesting. But even even without that, in the medical space, all of this new private AI tech opens up a whole bunch of new use cases, even without creating synthetic data, because the data can be stored, in the hospital or wherever it's collected. And actually, this is hopefully one of the projects that we're going to, that are going to put up a bounty are these guys who have, it's like images of surgery. I think it's like knee and shoulder surgery. This guy he's a surgeon, he's collected an image data set from the hospital, and he wants to classify, is this a knee or is this a shoulder, as a kind of proof of concept for a biomedical use case. And so he just got a small amount of funding from Ocean, and the plan is that next round we would actually start to build algorithms on top of that data set. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, hopefully we'll have some like bounties for people to work on that.
Yeah.
Another interesting, wait, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Another interesting use case in the biomedical field is the fact that there's a bunch of data privacy issues, especially when it comes to patients' medical data. So one thing you could do with the synthetic data set generation is actually make sure like you can kind of create a surrogate data set which has the same overall statistics or same statistics as your actual patient data, but then it's synthetic data, which is super cool.
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly what I was thinking, because when you are trying to develop an algorithm, you actually need some data, and that data needs to be as close as to the real data as possible, right? So, and then most hospitals or whatever, they don't want to share their data at all. Like they just lock it down completely. Right? So yeah.
Exactly. And actually, Victor isn't here, but his PhD was on the subject of using StyleGAN for creating synthetic face images that could be used to train facial recognition models. And I think he came up with some technique to basically, because it's unknown when you generate an image with StyleGAN, how close it is to some face in the data set. And that's what he was trying to quantify, to show like, this is sufficiently different from faces that we are trained on that there's no kind of personal information contained. And so, yeah, he has experience in this. I'm not sure how much he'll be able to work on, if seeing as like the company he did his PhD with probably owns it, but I'm sure he can transfer a lot of the skills towards that. So that would be a really exciting next step.
Yeah. Good chat, everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll probably have some sort of conversation tomorrow as well, maybe an open conversation, Junto, tomorrow. I don't know if we've decided on what the topic is, Richard, but yeah, we can keep you posted on the conversation that's going to happen tomorrow. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and see you on a call maybe tomorrow, or if not, in a hacking session or in Discord.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.